Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be here. I've been in the school for 3 years, and I'm finally just seeing a bunch of faces live. And it's been a real pleasure. Everybody's smile looks twice as bright in person than it does on a Zoom screen. So let's see. I've already changed the title of my presentation. Introduction to Organic Astrology is an old idea. The new title is Introduction to Gaian Astrology. This is going to be. Let me get a feel from the audience. How many people think that astrology is a cosmic science? Okay, I'm going to refute your beliefs. Astrology is a Gaian science. It's an earth-based science, 100%. And I think by the end of my presentation, you might agree with me. So let me, I've been really influenced by some faculty here at CIS, and I feel really blessed at my age to still be able to study with so many intelligent people. And one of those influences was Brian Swimme. And how many people have read Cosmogenesis, his latest one? Oh, it's great, and it's 38 chapters, short chapters, so you can read that in between all your other reading and get it all in. But I have accepted Brian's call to help create the new cosmological story. That's going to be one of my foci here at CIS. And I have also been influenced by the term Becoming Gaia. How many people have read that one? Okay, so I was immediately fascinated by that idea. Yeah, let's become Gaia. But wait, how do you do that? So that's part of my research study, Becoming Gaia. And coincidentally, the same semester that I read Sean's book, I also took a class called from Debashish called Integral Yoga Psychology. So there's the answer right there. It came together at the same time. The methodology for becoming Gaia goes through integral yoga. So that's it. That's going to be the research. That's going to be the research study as I figure that out. So let's see. Most of this presentation is going to be based on this symbol, this powerful diagram from Dane Rudhyar. It comes from this powerful little book called Astrological Signs, The Pulse of Life. All right, one more question. How many people have read this book? Not even the astrologer in the crowd. Okay, I would highly recommend this. Just step back a bit and take this in. There's a zodiac around the outside, and then the familiar Tai Chi 2. Tai Chi 2? Just a Tai Chi diagram. Tai Chi diagram, the familiar yin-yang symbol. But it's overlaid, so the zodiac can actually be described in terms of the rise and fall of yin and yang. I'm going to come back to this diagram, but first I want to explain. I want to modify a little bit Brian's cosmological story, because in my view, it's a bit of a mistake to grow from encapsulated ego consciousness and then recognizing that there's something greater, and then to jump right into full-blown universal consciousness. First from identifying with my little egocentric world, and then I make a consciousness breakthrough, and then all of a sudden now I identify with the entire universe. I think that's skipping a few steps there. So that's what I would propose to add to Brian's story. So here's Gaia, our beloved planet Earth. This symbol of Gaia could be placed right in the center of this symbol, so that the Tai Chi 2 and the zodiac become the phenomenological experience of space. That's a big point. But now Gaia is part of a larger system itself, the solar system. So there's already 2 scales there. we're going up to universal scale. First, we're going from Gaia to solar system. Now here's some details of the solar system. These would be Gaia's family, Gaia's brethren and sistren. The planets, they all coalesced at the same time. There's a little bit of a scale diagram of what so we're dealing with two scales here. We went from Gaia. Becoming Gaia would be a major breakthrough. If we could achieve that on a planetary scale, all the problems would be solved, wouldn't it? If everybody started thinking on a Gaian scale, if everybody started to identify as Gaia. Okay, so if we're agreed on that, now here's an interesting view of the inner planets. Now this has been going on for 4 billion years, right? So this could be the basis of why astrology works. Here's the outer planets. So you put those together, we're in this dynamic flux that's been going on for 4 billion years. Who knows how many billions of years the solar system has been doing this? 5? Something like that. But what does it really matter if it's 4.5 or 5 or if there's 2 trillion galaxies or 1 trillion? I mean, it's just massive. But say that these dynamics have been going on for billions of years. And of course, the sun is not stationary in the center of all this. The sun is also revolving around a group of stars at this end of the galaxy. So there's this massive dynamic flux, and then all of a sudden a conscious human being gets born into this flux. It's been going on for billions of years. And so he's the new human being becomes part now of this incredible dynamic flux. So here's our wonderful Milky Way. And I used to have a little pointer that I could do, but there's the sun right there.
It doesn't let you get close to it.
Right. So here's another scale. The Milky Way is also part of our solar system is part down on this Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way. So what I'm proposing is there's different scales of consciousness at each of these levels. So there's Gaian consciousness, there's a scale of consciousness at the solar system, there's a scale of consciousness at the Sagittarian arm of the galaxy. And these will all be different qualities of consciousness. And then there's the whole galaxy on its own. Isn't that core just fabulous? I used to have a picture of Yogananda in my bedroom. But since I've been part of this group, I took down the Yogananda picture. Now I have a picture of this right in the center, right above my altar. I'm starting to learn how to identify at the scale of the galaxy. But now there's a whole other consciousness way before you get to universe scale. There's already a scale of consciousness at this magnificent creation, or self-creation. Now here's the Andromeda galaxy. And so I learned in Curie Welch's class that the Andromeda galaxy and the Milky Way are a local cluster, that's what it's called. The local cluster, and it includes some other various stellar or interstellar objects, including a couple of minor galaxies. But then, so there's another scale of consciousness beyond the Milky Way, is this a binary system, you might call it the Andromeda galaxy, which, by the way, is heading towards us. And in so many trillions of years, there's a predicted collision. But now we find that even at least outside of the local cluster, which is at the center here, the local group, there's these larger clusters, these mega clusters, and we're actually part of the Virgo supercluster. So how many scales of consciousness has that been since we've grown out of our ego consciousness to Gaian, solar system, Sagittarian arm, Milky Way, local cluster, and Virgo cluster, Virgo supercluster. And then we find that there's many different superclusters. Brian's really good at knowing the exact number. I just say it's massive, some massive scale number of superclusters. So there's another level of consciousness way before we even got to universal consciousness. And so I just want to propose, and I maybe find a way to make a research study out of it. How do we identify with these various levels of consciousness? And we just learned from Jack that it does exist, even though we don't need to explain it. You just know what it is. So, what is the Virgo supercluster level of consciousness? And how does that differ than Gaian consciousness? Just for example, Lani Kea, I saw my roomie Josh has a three-dimensional image of Lani Kea.
Lani Kea, and I think you're talking about Lani kinship.
Lani kinship, okay. Whatever it is, it's massive. So we're talking about the universe. It's not just empty space, and we can start identifying. It's incredibly structured and detailed. And so I want to emphasize that these could potentially be various levels of consciousness that we could explore. And then this is a view from the new telescope, the deep space field, where how many billions of years more older is the universe projected to be now. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, just to get to Gaian level consciousness would be a tremendous achievement already. So I'm going to start talking about Gaian astrology now. So here's the basic relationship: Earth and Sun. Earth revolves around Sun, and as it revolves, the Sun appears to be moving through different backdrops of stars, right? Aries, Taurus, Gemini. It appears from a phenomenological perspective, that from a direct experience perspective, it looks from our vantage point that the Sun, throughout the year, is moving through various parts of the sky that have these background stars that are called constellations. So that's the basic. That's what brings us astrology to the zodiac. And then, so here's the collection of these constellations. Now, I know some people are Rudolf Steiner fans, and I was surprised to learn that Rudolf Steiner takes these constellations quite seriously. For example, biodynamic farming the entire length of Virgo, they'll use that as a real entity, Virgo, the constellation, so that planting if you're going to plant in Virgo, you go from when the sun is in that part of Virgo all the way to the end. But now I have to ask you a question. That's only from an Earth-based perspective. But what if we were sitting on the star Arcturus, for example? Would that same constellation look like that? No. The constellations are merely the backdrops from the previous slide. Right? From that perspective, it looks like they're real entities. And Scorpio might be the closest example. It kind of actually looks like a scorpion with the center star Antares in the heart position. But it's really just from the Earth-based perspective. So now we're finally back to here. I love this book, Dane Rudhyar. I read a little bit on the train on the way down. I still can't. I haven't memorized it yet. But let's begin to analyze now the Tai Chi 2. That's what I learned. The Tai Chi symbol overlaid on top of the zodiac. So on the far left there we have Aries. Let me start at the top. Capricorn, 0 degrees Capricorn is when Yang is born. So the white symbol begins at 0 degrees Capricorn, 21st of December, and then it comes to its fullness. Yang comes to its fullness at 0 degrees Cancer at the very bottom, summer solstice. And then at summer solstice, Yin is born, and Yin moves, and it comes into its fullness. This is the lengthening of the night force. The nights keep getting longer and longer, and then it culminates at 0 degrees Capricorn. So anybody's read the I Ching, that's the same kind of language that's used there. When yang culminates, yin is born. And when yin culminates, yang is born. It's this continuous cycle that's been going on for 5 billion years. So there's, going back now, 0 degrees Aries, first day of spring, we already know that there's a precession of the equinoxes. So 0 degrees Aries, 2,000 years ago, is now moving to 0 degrees Pisces, right? So that means that that's the verification that it's not the background of stars that we use as a reference point, the constellations. It's an Earth-based cycle. 0 degrees Aries, and whatever sign it falls in, or the vernal equinox, and whatever sign it falls in, that is the specific point. That's when the day and the night force are equal, and the yang has just begun to come into its fullness. That is the vernal equinox. And in another 2,000 years, it'll be approaching Aquarius, right? 0 degrees Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. No, the vernal equinox. Well, it continuously backdropping.
You're right.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's this dynamic flux. So now let's go through the signs. How many sun in Aries? Okay, there's a sun in Aries. That's the characteristics for Aries come from its position at that vernal equinox. It's not an arbitrary set of qualities, outgoing or dynamic, pioneering. It's because of the qualities at that point on this diagram. So what happens at 0 degrees Aries, 21st of March, or when spring starts? The life starts happening. It starts bubbling out of the ground, bursting out of the ground. Seeds are popping up, and all of a sudden birds are flying and everything's flying. This is the characteristic of Aries. It's that initial onrush of the life force. And Aries doesn't know what to do with it. The average Aries person, it's just there. It's happening. They just try to manage it as best they can, but there's still it's there, but it's so unconscious because it hasn't experienced the full cycle yet. So it's just this. Dane Rudhyar calls it the eternal adolescent, because they can continue in this continuous state of becoming, of wanting to identify what is this personality that I have, or what is, and how does it fit in with what's going on around me. So that initial onrush at 0 degrees Aries, then when it comes down to Taurus, 30 degrees later. Now, I wish someone could help me to understand this. Why the 12, the magic number 12? Is it because there's 12 cycles of the moon? Is it because Jeff Green thought it was because 3 times 4, the 3 and the 4 together are some kind of magic combination? I'm not sure why, but 12 is the magic number here. So after 30 degrees of Aries, it goes, the sun in its relationship, this Earth in its relationship to the sun moves into the cycle that's called Taurus. And so after this mad onrush of energy, each sign tends to accommodate the extremities or the extremes of the previous sign. So in Taurus, that mad rush of energy, now it needs to find security. It needs to find a secure base from which to operate. It just kept on going like that forever. It would just burn itself out. So Taurus is the pulling in of that Aryan energy, and I began identifying with the resource base around it so that it can establish a sense of security, because this is an evolving personality. Dane Rudhyar wrote an excellent book called Personality-Centered Astrology too. So he was bringing it out of that kind of fortune-telling medieval or a Victorian realm and making it a psychological interpretation. Okay, so then after it gets to Taurus, so this is a cycle of self-discovery. So then when it gets down to Gemini, after it's established a secure base, now it wants to explore its environment. That's what Gemini is all about. Just whatever interesting new thing is happening, let's go out and find out, explore it. How many Geminis in this room? Okay. That's what. So it's not just that somebody thought invented this, like these set of qualities that fits this personality called Gemini. It's that at this stage of the cycle, in the yearly growth cycle, that's what the archetype means. I'm not sure if archetype is the best word to use there, but that's just what came out. that's
essence.
That could be debatable. So that's what Gemini means. Now here's a very significant part of the cycle now. When it gets down to Cancer, and I wish there would have been a different name. Why wasn't somebody thinking in advance to say I'm a Cancer? That's just, I'm really sorry about that. How about Cancerian for now? But at Cancer, after moving around and exploring so much in Gemini, the Yang is coming to fruition. So it's time at that instant of that summer solstice. If you could be sitting and meditating and know exactly at the moment that the sun is going to reach its apogee, reach its peak, then everything starts pulling back inward. That is the birth of Yin, and that's what Cancer means. It means to find a well-defined center, and at some levels it's a personality, it's a home, it's being able to contribute to a social life, and that's what the Yin cycle is about. It's a collectivizing, a socializing dynamic, whereas the Yang is a personalizing dynamic. So at that point of 0 degrees Cancer, everything draws inward and it stops becoming an outward personalizing energy, and it transforms into a socializing, collectivizing energy, which will come into fruition at Capricorn, which Rudhyar calls the state. But it goes through, now it has to go through all these other signs to get there. So at Leo, and this is interesting because Leo and Virgo, it's already the Yin phase, but there's still a subjective level of astrology, whereas the hemisphere, the lower hemisphere is personal and the upper hemisphere is collective, but it's still kind of lingering. So everybody knows in Leo, that well-defined center of that's created in Cancerian now finds creative expression through children. What is one of the most powerful ways to express yourself from a well-defined center? So it finds expression in Leo, then in Virgo, that self-expression has become an interference into becoming part of the collective, the socializing force. So in Virgo comes the purification stage, purifying the ego. I tend to think of traditionally Mercury is given rulership in Virgo, but I tend to think Chiron is a better model because Virgo is the sign of to prepare for the entrance into Pisces. Virgo is the sign of yoga and discipleship and stuff like that. But it's all fits into the larger cycle as the collectivizing force. And then another major transition happens when the night force and the day force are once again equal at Libra. That's where that initial outpouring energy from Aries now is reflected back on itself, and it's the beginning of the desire for relationship. Coming to an identification of who we are through other people. It's that initial desire to know who you are through another person, through a mirror. That's what Libra is. So, and then once again, it's not just because somebody someday decided to write an article and said Libra has these qualities because there's a constellation out there that's beaming down energies or something. It's not like that at all. So Libra is that Libra is that initial desire for relationship, and in Scorpio, I want to ask how many Scorpios there are here. All right. They're all this side of the room. But in Scorpio, that initial desire just to reach out and find somebody to identify with, now becomes actually, let's join forces. Let's come together through sex or through business or through some kind of contractual relationship, and let's join forces. And that's a tremendous power, tremendous sense of power. Just like Taurus is power also, but it's organic power, the power of the life force that flows through us. But in Scorpio, it's the power of coming together with other people for a common purpose. And then in Sagittarius, this is the hardest one for me to remember, but I think Lily could probably fill some in. What I know about Sagittarius is that power that's created in Scorpio can then find, just like Gemini is a mental sign, so is Sagittarius. It's mental, so it's taking that power, that force that was created in Scorpio, and then giving it philosophical expression or through laws, or it's really strange for me that this would be travel, learning through travel, and I still don't understand why yin coming to fruition would be expressed through Sagittarius, because Sagittarius seems to be such a dynamic sign, and fruition, the culmination of yin seems to be, I would intuitively a little more subdued. But anyway, but Sagittarius is the preparation for the winter solstice, and the transition into Capricorn, where now the cycle has come all the way around, and now it's grown so full and it's grown so mature that it can begin to establish structures in the social world, government, corporations, stuff like that. That's what Capricorn means. And then also we can go really quick now. So once Yang is born, then once the social structures are established in Capricorn, then they can begin to, in Aquarius, they can begin to find expressions, social expressions, experimentations with social dynamics and various social groups. You know, the Aquarian propensity to rebel and to rebel from whatever happened in Capricorn. And then finally we get the Pisces, and this is the dissolution phase, where the whole cycle now has come to a full fruition, and whatever was created begins to dissolve now. Pisces is the dissolution phase, dissolving back into the wholeness, into the unity from which it began. And so we find that the Tai Chi symbol becomes a perfect representation of the cycle that is the zodiac. Oh, I wanted to mention one quote from here. Page 14. How much time do I have, please?
About 4 more minutes.
4 minutes?
4 more minutes.
4 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, it's good timing. Okay, on page 14, Dane Rudhyar says, the zodiac is the symbolization of the cycle of the year. It's not cosmic. Cosmic is several layers of organization beyond that. So I'm getting a little bit closer to home. This is my hometown of Eugene, where the wilderness comes right into the city, and where there's enough bike trails that we don't need to own cars. Ordinarily, I'm coming out of an ego-encapsulated consciousness would tend to follow this path. First, identifying with your local area, then with your bioregion. There's Oregon and the Willamette Valley. But I skipped those stages because I wanted to get right to Gaia consciousness and becoming Gaia. And so through this study, now through what we've learned, I can use astrology as a methodology for becoming Gaia, because I know that the cycles of Gaia can be expressed in the zodiac. As Gaia as a living being in relationship with its family of planets. And then I'll close with my own chart. Up at the top there, 0 degrees Capricorn is where my Saturn is situated. So that means right there at the top of what we were looking at earlier, where Yang is born, 0 degrees Capricorn, my Saturn is sitting right on top of that. So I still don't quite know exactly what it means. But whatever is that initial burst of life force, initial burst of Yang energy has to be filtered first through the Saturnian crystallized consciousness. Crystallized, I don't know if consciousness is the right word, but crystallized something, crystallized thought forms. I don't know, we're not going to get to the bottom of that here, so I'll just end for now.
Thank you, Crystal.
We could do a question too. So, this is a question that it's an open question for me. I'm curious what you think about it. So, you mentioned that the zodiac, and I'm not exactly sure how old. I was asking Becca. I don't know if she knows.
I mean, we don't have an exact pinpointed origin. The first birth chart that we have, the record for, is from 410 BCE.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I was not sure when this system of astrology and the system of 12 signs was first, was something that people were first working with. But, insofar as like this kind of debate within the astrological world around the legitimacy of the tropical zodiac versus the sidereal zodiac, which would correspond with, where the stars are currently in connection with the precession of the equinoxes. So there's this argument for the tropical zodiac based on, what you were mentioning, it reflecting the seasons. But so like for an open question for me about this is if this system of 12 signs emerged 2,000 years ago, happened to coincidentally emerge 2,000 years ago, when the vernal equinox was in Aries, but then before that it would have been in Taurus, and do you know what I'm asking basically? That do you think that argument is still valid, I guess?
I'm not much of a historian on astrology.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that there was some kind of speculation going on. I know the Chaldeans and the Mesopotamian or the Sumerians had their own astrology. So, but it's just whatever level of consciousness was operating at that time. Now we've seen into the deep space field, so we have that new perspective to add on to layers of whatever originated in the first astrological chart. But then there's Hindu astrology, and which uses a block system, which I don't understand at all. So I don't know, whatever works for your developing unfoldment.
Yeah, lots of different ways to divine. Does anybody else have a question?
If it's quick, we'll get to the highlights.
So a comment, I think it's interesting how you showed how each sign shows an opposite energy to the previous sign. It's almost like the yin yang is not just manifesting on that level where it's the first 6 signs are opposite to the other 6 signs, but it's on the mini level as well, which kind of shows like the fractal nature of the yin yang as a symbol, because like in every white part there's a little black, right? And then if you look into that little black dot, then that would probably be more. And that just kind of goes along with the fractal nature that you showed.
Yeah, good observation. So then there's 4 water signs, 3 water signs, 4 cardinal houses, and all that. So yeah, it is this tremendously intricate.
But then that would mean that on some level, it does kind of repeat higher cosmic levels too. So it's not totally different from their organization either, because it's the same pattern repeating fractally, right?
Higher cosmic levels?
Yeah.
Where would you end with that cosmic level? At the scale of the universe?
Can't see that far yet.
Thank you,
But
Krista.
not only that, there's Taurus and Scorpio form a polarity, so each of the signs forms a polarity with its opposite. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Krista.
So let's do another 2-minute stretch break. I'm trying to give everyone an extra 5 minutes for questions, so we're shortening the breaks a little bit, if that's okay. don't want to cut the interesting discussion short. But
The trough of the zodiac is modified when the vernal equinox for Aries.
Yeah.
That's why it's set.
But then, so.
So they just let it